Welcome to Global Impact, the show that connects the dots so you don't have to. I am Melissa Ricci, and I am sharing the mic today with Michael Borsicue, my dear co-host. How are you, Michael?
Hi, Melissa. I'm very good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. So today we're going to have a very special episode and very different one because we usually have one guest at a time, but for the first time on Global Impact, we're having a panel. Yes, a panel of three experts. So
Yeah, and what kind of unites our three guests is that in one way or another, they're all dealing with love in their professional capacities, right? Either bringing people together or talking to them, even fixing their hearts, talking to couples. So it's really a great group of people, and we're gonna, should we go ahead and introduce them?
Yes.
All right. The first one I'll talk about is my good friend, Dr.Sue Varma. She's a board-certified, award-winning psychiatrist and clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at New York University Langone Health. Distinguished fellow of the American Psychiatric Association, and apparently the highest honor bestowed upon its members. And talking about the pandemic, Melissa, Dr. Sue and I met virtually on a panel at the very, very start of the pandemic. And you know, it's one of those things, even though we're separated by a screen and long wires, we kind of clicked in a way and knew we needed to carry on the conversation. So we got together virtually. We traded stories about how to, you know, keep online and keep our voices heard. So that turned into friendship. And I had her, she's actually an alumni of the original Global Impact when it was just an audio show. So we're really good to have her back. Anyway, she's also the first medical director and attending psychiatrist to the World Trade Center mental health program at NYU Langone, where she treated first responders and civilians impacted by 9/11. And anyone who watches American television, especially in the mornings, well, you'll find Dr. Sue is a pretty familiar face. Even during the lockdowns, she managed to do a lot of television from home, a lot of those on morning shows. And so she can regularly be seen on the Today Show, NBC News, CNN, CBS, ABC News, Good Morning America, to name a few. And I don't know how she fits all of this into 24-hour day, but she's also working on a book. She's author of the highly anticipated forthcoming book, Practical Optimism, A Tangible Pathway to Boosting Health, Happiness, Resilience, Success, and Longevity. So we're really going to be looking forward to that book and to talking to her.
So our second expert about to join us is the beautiful, amazing Simona Fusco. We've been friends on social media for quite a long time, and we've been supporting each other. She's very much about female empowerment. She's a strong, beautiful human being, but what she's known for mostly is being the #1 matchmaker in the country. She is like very much sought after by the media. She's been everywhere on CNN, CBS, TLC, Fox News, Dr. Phil, I mean, to name a few. She's every time somebody wants advice on relationships, dating, long-lasting, matchmaking, whatever, she is the person to ask. She was also honored and presented with the Global Excellence Award in Women's Entrepreneurship by the Mayor of Los Angeles, and was recognized as a prominent business leader and philanthropist. Indeed, Simona actually created a foundation in 2015, the Maria Gruber Foundation, after the loss of her beloved mother to cancer. Simona also created recently I think it's a foundation, it's a global foundation called Ask Simi, and it's all about empowering women and young women to believe in themselves and discover their full potential. And that's a new venture, but we'll dig in more later on with her about what it is about. Yes, and that's Simona Fusco.
And last but not least, of course, is our third expert, Dr. Rico Sibonini, an international renowned cardiologist who has published and has been cited in hundreds of publications, including Braunwald's Textbook of Cardiology. Dr. Rico received many, many awards for his investigations and participated in seminal clinical trials which shaped the foundation for current guideline-directed therapy for congestive heart failure. Dr. Rico is affiliated with Cedars Sinai Medical Center, the very respected medical center, where many of his patients happen to be Hollywood celebrities, which kind of leads us, gives us a segue into his Hollywood acting career. Indeed, Dr. Rico is an award-winning actor and producer. He has many theater and film credits under his belt, and most notably produced and acted in the multiple award-winning movie Frank and Eva, depicting the tumultuous love relationship between Frank Sinatra and Eva Gardner, where he played none other than Mr. Blue Eyes, Mr. Frank Sinatra. So Dr. Rico Simonini is definitely an expert of the heart issues in more ways than one. Just thinking, Melissa, I'm wondering, Simona, whether we're done with the show, maybe she'd be willing to take you and I on as clients and fix us up.
Did you just announce publicly that I was single?
I'm not saying that. I mean, you know.
I could have many relationships.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
This would, of course, be for scientific purposes, you know, to document the process. And,
well,
you know, we would be giving ourselves for our listeners and audience to, you know, shine light on what the process is of being part of an elite matchmaker.
I'm always willing to be a rat lab.
Okay. Dr. Sue, actually, I can say welcome back to Global Impact. You were one of the first guests I had on Global Impact when it was still just a podcast. And we're so honored and humbled to have you back again. So thank you for joining not only me now and Melissa as well on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I love all that you both are doing. So thank you.
Thank you. So let's get right to the point. Let's get right into it. As you know, Valentine's Day is coming up. A lot of us really look forward to it. Shops around here have been stocked with Valentine's chocolates for weeks now. However, some people actually tell me they find it one of the loneliest days of the year. And I'm wondering, Dr. Sue, for anyone trying to cope with this approaching kind of holiday, do you have any quick tips to help them kind of make it through the day?
Even though Valentine's Day might be a reminder of that loneliness, I feel like we're really dealing with an epidemic of loneliness at baseline. And this really is a crisis. And yes, the pandemic added and exacerbated it. But really what it comes down to is the feeling of not being understood, not feeling seen by other people. And it doesn't have to be just in your love life. So even though Valentine's Day reminds us that, okay, maybe I don't have a romantic partnership, but to me, the idea of loneliness and how to get rid of it can be fulfilled by so many other great people in your life. So I would say for Valentine's Day, you know, depending on what your COVID restrictions are and what the weather is like and temperature, if you can make it to spend time with a friend, a loved one, getting in touch with a colleague and say, hey, I know that you might be free or maybe you're not, or can I join you? Can we make plans? So whatever makes sense, but the face-to-face connections are the most valuable and give us the most bang for our buck. And if you can't do face-to-face in person, then even what we're doing right now, right, which is like a video conference. Right. Yeah, and I love that, Michael, you're so great at keeping in touch. And I have to commend you for that, because you send me the best articles for people. Support can come in the form, you know, I talk about the idea of, you know, different people will provide different things in your life: tangible support, material support, informational support. So, you know, keeping in touch with friends in whatever way that makes sense. I thought about you, and to me that means so much, because it says I'm on your mind. You took a minute out of your day, and this is something that's going to go so far for me. So keep in touch. I love that you are really a role model. I have to learn from you. Oh,
wow, humble.
But phone to phone, face to face, in person. Forget about the romance. Like, you know, romance is great. Romance is wonderful. Who doesn't want romance, right? But, you know, and we'll talk about it, but, you know, that's what the movies are for, right? And those what the butterflies and initial stages of relationships are about. You know, I've been married for a while now, and I know that, like, you know, in time, it's the friendship, it's the partnership, there's so much more, you know, and sometimes you don't even celebrate Valentine's Day. You know, you're like, wait, what day is it today, honey? Like, oh, okay, great. So symbolic gestures of love, you know, and it depends, and we could talk about this, love languages, and how do you want to be loved and how do you receive love? So, but yes, this is you know, Valentine's Day is a great reminder and a celebration for love and friendship, period, not just romantic partnerships.
Well, thanks, Dr. Sue, for those nice words. And you've been a great inspiration and help to me too. So it goes definitely where we've got this reciprocal thing going on. I'm so grateful for. Yeah, we have Simona ready to come in with your permission. And yeah.
Please.
Okay, here we are. Much better. How are you?
Yeah, I knew we're going to wear red. We're good. I'm good. How are you?
It's pink. I'm just kidding.
Pink? Oh,
it's like a hot pink.
it's a hot pink. Yeah, it's hard to tell when you have
Yeah,
like,
I know. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's pretty red. But you look so beautiful. Everybody looks so well put together.
A little makeup does wonders. And Simona, great to
you.
meet you, and also meet Dr.
You
Sue.
too.
I think you guys have been in touch.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Sue.
Hi,
Nice
nice to meet you. Thank you.
Simona, welcome to the conversation. We're so humbled and honored to have you. Thanks for making the time for Global Impact
thank
today.
you for having me.
Let's jump right into the affairs of the heart. And Dr. Sue, also welcome back again. Let me kick off with this if I can. So women hear often that they have to kiss a lot of frogs before finding Prince Charming. I was wondering to both of you, starting with Dr. Sue, what are your thoughts on this concept of finding the one and only and happily ever after? Is there such a thing as finding the right person?
You know, such an interesting question, and I think about it also from a cross-cultural perspective. In my practice, I work with couples from all over the world, and I also see with my own family of Indian origin and how arranged marriages, it's a very different concept. You know, there's this idea of you find commonality in arranged marriages, or sort of Eastern wisdom, or thinking that you find commonality, you find mutual understanding, respect, friendship, and then it builds, like love and respect are there, but they also grow with time. And I think sort of Western perspective, or sort of Hollywood big screen, is the magic, the butterflies, the excitement. And I think in an ideal situation, there's a combination of both, because I tell people never settle. You don't want, obviously you need physical attraction and romance and chemistry in a relationship, but you also need some of the sort of longer term perspectives and thinking. And part of that is working on yourself. You know, when people come and they have couples problems, there's also other things going on in the relationship. There might be depression or anxiety or a childhood trauma that hasn't been dealt with, or whatever it might be, work-life balance issues. So I really think that we're only going to, our partnerships and the success of those are going to be limited by our own sort of intrapersonal, within ourselves success. So I don't know if you necessarily have to kiss that many frogs, but I just think that you have to have the right overall perspective and vision in life, which is, are you willing to listen to somebody? Are you willing to take another person's perspective? Is there empathy and compassion in the relationship? And is there also self-respect and a sense of self-worth? Because a lot of times, like I'll see a lot of my female patients there'll be a lot of giving, you know, and they won't be receiving very much. So I guess that's where the frog part comes in, is when they finally feel like they meet the prince. Sometimes it's a person or partner who treats them the way they always should have been treated. But it's hard to know that if we've had a lot of negative experiences and we really don't know what kind of standard we should hold somebody up to. So I think the first thing I would say is work on one's self-worth, knowing what one deserves, respect, how you would treat somebody else, to expect that back in return, and be ready to walk away. A lot of couples also invest in premarital counseling, which I think is amazing. Like, even if they're not planning on ever getting married, they just say, I want to understand my partner better. I want to have a better relationship. What can you do? So I love that more and more people are taking care early on. They're not waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Well, fascinating answer. Thank you for that. Simona, over to you. Any thoughts on this topic? Does one have to go through a lot of frogs, so to speak, or partners in order to find the right one? And you have vast experience in this. You're professional, kind of elite matchmaker, and very curious, excited to hear your thoughts.
Well, I agree with everything Dr. Sue said. So thank you. And that's it. No, just kidding. No, you were so thorough and you really touched on everything. I mean, absolutely, we all have to go through, you know, frogs and frogesses, I guess. But I think it's also a matter of getting to know yourself. through the process. And so I suggest that it's important that you date. And because a lot of the times my clients will come to me and they will say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. She has to look like this. She has to be this age. I want her in this business. And then they sort of pigeonhole themselves. And I try to say, just try to be open-minded. And then that's when I see that people say, oh, wow, there are people out there that are compatible with me. It's when people start thinking sort of outside the box and are more open-minded, instead of just so focused on what they're used to dating or this idea they have of the ideal person. So I think that helps you then weed through, so to speak, the frogs. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but it's interesting also because there was a studies about fairy tales and children, and how being exposed to fairy tales very young could format your perception of romantic love and this idealistic, like the princess needs to be saved by a prince, which is very disempowering for women, I think, because we can save ourselves, I believe. What do you think of this, Dr. Sue? And then we'll go into because we're trying here to. It starts, I think, in childhood. This whole conception of romantic love and ideal, and this kind of expectation, high expectation that people have. So, Dr. Sue, what do you think of this?
Yeah, no, I think it's so wonderful. And you bring up a lot of really good points about, number one, like the females feeling in some way either less than or incomplete and needing a romantic partner or, quote, like you said, prince to save them. So what do we need saving from? We don't need saving from anything, not from ourselves, not from anything, right? But this idea that I won't be happy until, and it could be anything, fill in the blank, right? Somebody may say, I won't be happy until I get my job promotion. I may not be happy until I have a house, until I have children, I have a spouse, whatever it might be. So fill in the blank. It's human nature to feel as if something is always missing, that we don't feel comfortable just sitting and being, or even being alone. Yes. And, tying into the theme of Valentine's Day, I think one of the biggest boons in life is being able to enjoy your own company. And I think that can be extremely empowering if you can look at this concept of aloneness. And I talk about this in the book, Practical Optimism, is that aloneness is enjoying your own company. It's something you do by choice. Of course, we need other people. I'm by no means saying go be a hermit and go live in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere, but being able to balance and weave an aloneness practice, taking time for yourself, for meditation, for a cup of coffee, for a walk, whatever it might be, and weaving in between. But the idea of expectations, expecting someone else to make you happy, that's sort of universal. Yes, it might be the fairy tales. And I love now seeing more and more movies and children's books where the female protagonist is a role model and she's saving the village and saving everybody. So it can go both ways. The other issue is that we're looking for romantic love to fulfill a need that used to be fulfilled by an entire community. And this idea of whether it be a romantic partner or even our jobs, we're looking for transcendence. And the problem is that was never the role of what marriage was. If you look at, hundreds of years ago, it was, a sort of partnership, work, labor, an agreement, a division of labor, if you will. And now we're expecting one person to be our soulmate and to be our confidant and to be our...
jump on the soulmate conversation, the twin flame, all this kind of, because that's interesting. That's the new age way of labeling relationship and trying to understand them on a more, spiritual way, I guess. But Simona, what do you actually feel about this whole fairy tale, children being exposed to fairy tales at a young age?
I mean, I'm in the matchmaking industry and I've seen many fairy tales come true. So it's hard for me to say.
90%, what's your company's success? 90%, right?
90% success rate, yes. Yeah. But so it's hard for me to say, well, fairy tales don't exist, because I see them happen almost every day. Right. So they do exist, but I mean, the fairy tales that you were told, you tell your children, I was told fairy tales, and I think, you have to be realistic in your mind too, what's real and what's not, right? Some things are a fable and some things are a story. So I just don't really agree that it's an issue, because then we would believe in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We don't really believe that exists, that there are seven dwarfs sitting in a cave somewhere. So I don't know.
They exist.
So I don't know. It's just I just don't believe in that it damages children. I don't. I think there's some beautiful fairy tales, and it's nice to have that, kind of romantic heart and to believe in a fairy tale, because like I said, I have made them happen and I've seen them. So I'm a big believer in fairy tales. So,
and do you believe, sorry to interrupt, but do you believe that being a matchmaker, there's only one person for you in this lifetime? Or do you think there's...
No, absolutely not. And I think you were touching on twin flames or something.
Yeah, we're gonna go
that. I really do believe in soulmates, but I do not necessarily believe that a soulmate has to be the opposite sex or even outside of your family. For example, my mom was my soulmate, and she passed away from colorectal cancer not too long ago. I just believe you can have many soulmates in life. Somebody that you just connect with, and I don't know, it's just hard to explain, but you just are almost one person and you have an understanding for each other. There's no judgment, and it's an incredible feeling. So I don't believe that there's just one. I've had soulmates with the father of my daughter who passed away, when she was only a little girl, and he was my soulmate. So I have friends that can be soulmates. So I just think you shouldn't just think, oh, my soulmate is in a man or in a woman. You can have your soulmate in your friend, your parents, your children, and your significant other. So yes, I believe there are many soulmates in a lifetime.
Great answer. And I'm really glad you pointed out it doesn't have to be the same sex. It could be someone else or even a friend. Dr. Sue, I wanted you to also address the issue of soulmates, but if I can for a moment give a quick anecdote, I'm going to take off my pre-manufactured CNN face and tell you what happened almost exactly a year ago real quick. Vancouver Airport, I'm going through security. I come out of security and my MacBook Pro bumps into another MacBook Pro, which is being carried by a very lovely, intelligent woman, as it turns out. And from that seconds of encounter, literally, we're going on different flights. We became among the closest of friends and confidants. This was at the midst of lockdown too, when hardly people were even talking to each other. So, but she really does feel like a soulmate, this friend of mine who's also in California. What's your take on this, Dr. Sue? Do soulmates actually exist?
I love that idea. And, I think of a soulmate as someone who's willing to take the time to really understand you. And as Simona said, judgment-free understand you. I think that that's so rare. And I think that is the answer to the loneliness crisis, which we're all experiencing. And it was already an epidemic, at least in the United States, but really also worldwide. I mean, the UK has had a loneliness minister for many, many years now, because we know the impact it has on the brain and the body, and it wreaks havoc literally in every organ system. And it shortens your life, and it causes all sorts of strokes, increases the risk for heart attacks. So it's something that we really have to take very seriously. So absolutely. And I would say, even if you don't have a soulmate or don't have one right now, just understand that if you're willing and you're open to extend your heart and your mind and your time judgment-free, because no one amongst us is judgment-free. Everybody has judgments, right? Whether they're from childhood, whether they're from our parents, whether current society. But if you're willing to take the time and to listen, and this was what I was talking about on my interview with CBS yesterday, where there was a public figure who died by suicide, and the people who knew her were just shocked, because this is like, high profile and very, very successful, smart, beautiful, intellectual person. How could this happen? How could we have missed the signs? And I just think that we're putting way too much emphasis on external achievements and success and validation, and nobody's really sitting and asking each other, how are you doing? How are you feeling? I see you, I hear you. And then compassion, which takes it beyond empathy and says, how can I help you? Right? So a soulmate is going to take that time to listen to you, to understand you, and then to offer you help. And I want people to see soulmates as these people, you know, these angels that give of themselves to you. Maybe they're not the coolest, the glamorous, the most fashionable. Maybe they don't know the best restaurant. Maybe they're not the most well-traveled, but they will be there for you in a heartbeat. So you probably have a soulmate out there and just don't even know it yet.
Yeah. Wow. And here's the soulmate jumping, popping out.
Perfect timing.
Timing was
Wow.
perfect. We're all about soulmates right now, Rico.
Soulmates, wow, that's great. I just dove in there in that window. The universe.
I know, the timing was
Perfect.
Universe made me appear.
That's right. So let's do the introduction very quickly. So Dr. Rico, I'm going to call you Dr. Rico for
Sure, sure.
Even though we're friends. So Dr. Rico, Dr. Sue, you have Dr. Sue Varma, and you have Simona Fusco, and my
Nice to meet
dear
you.
co-host, Michael Borsik, at the top.
Hello, doctor.
Nice to meet you.
Wonderful.
Great
Nice
to-
to meet you.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you made it. So, well, what do you think about soulmates?
Wow. Let's
Do
hit the
they
ground.
exist?
Of course they do. I mean, it's why we live, right? I mean, there's lots of. I mean, okay, so there's science and there's physics and there's metaphysics. I think we all have. There's people. I believe. I think that's why I wake up in the morning that we resonate with, and maybe if you believe in frequencies and you believe in they just did this research with superconductors, and they found out that they take these two solid state circuits. One function in one circuit could affect the function in another circuit thousands of miles away. And I think by understanding how these things work, we could eventually travel great distances in quick amount of times, because things can coexist in two different planes. I think there's people out there in this world that we meet that resonate with us. They vibrate with us. There's something like we've known them. I mean, some people say it's past lives. Some people say it's future lives. You know, because we're getting off medicine now. But I think, you know, we live in this life right now that we're aware of, that we're surrounded by, you know, flesh and blood and time and space that we think. But I think that we probably exist on different planes that we're not aware of. And I think there's people out there that kind of are there with us, and we just connect with. And I think there's something magical, or something you meet people that you feel you've known your whole life, even though you've met them for a few minutes.
Have you, Dr. Rico, have you met, do you believe there could be several soulmates in this lifetime?
Sure. I mean, I think that you know, see, there's a romantic view of soulmates. You meet that one soulmate, and that's that one person you spend your life with, and that's that Hallmark movie that we all want to go see, because that's what we pay to see those movies, because we want to believe that. But I think there's lots of people we meet. It could be, you know, it could be a colleague, it could be a friend, it could be someone that, you know, and I think there's lots along the way, you know, and that's kind of why we do it. We're looking for those people. And I think that's also why, you know, not to be, I try to be sanguine about it, but life could be disappointing, because once we find those, or we want to find, we think other people could be like that too, and then we get disappointed. So it's hard to, sometimes you get not spoiled, or you get this idea that they're out there, and you realize how beautiful, how wonderful to be able to communicate by just, you know, with few words or understanding. And then you think there are other people like that they'll get you, and then you allow yourself to be vulnerable and open, so you can see if you resonate. And then we get disappointed, because not everybody we allow ourselves to be vulnerable to, you know, is the one we should do that. We should know our audience, as we're taught, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. For the last few minutes, we have Dr. Sue with us. If, with your permission, if we could just do a quick round robin, starting with Dr. Sue. And Dr. Sue, please feel free to leave afterwards. I know you have to attend to family matters, but one thing I worry about a lot, I agree with everything you guys said, and you worded it so eloquently, but from the pandemic, where people are almost acting counterintuitively, avoiding each other, keeping a distance, not shaking hands, is there a legitimate fear that at least it could take us a while to reboot our systems, to be able to have that spontaneity back, to meet people, to get closer to them? Or do you fear there's some things we may have lost because of the pandemic? Dr. Sue?
I think, to be honest with you, one thing that I've learned is that people are pretty resilient overall. And, you know, I remember meeting people socially the first summer of 2020 outside in the park. And these were other parents of the kids that my other kids that went to school with my kids. And I think that people were so happy to be outside, to be able to feel that they could safely connect with other people. So I think that the driving force is human connection, right? And there's a joke that the introverts were like, we were waiting for this our whole life, to be able to not have to go outside and talk to other people. This is wonderful, sign me up. But I think the vast majority of people, even introverts, they enjoy other people's company, right? Maybe need rest in between or want to recharge in between. So I don't think that anything has been lost forever. And I'll be honest with you, there's some people who don't seem to be bothered by what's happening in the world. They've been going out. I see on social media, there's certain parts of the country or the world, they're like, what pandemic? We've been partying. And, maybe there's a little bit more of an outdoor culture because the climate is better and they're able to do so safely, or for any number of reasons. So I don't think anything's been lost, but I do think there's a hesitancy. And I think that at the beginning, it took us a minute to recognize, like I would say to people, even if you're wearing a mask, you can still make eye contact. You can still say hello. You can still nod your head. You might not be hugging and jumping up all over them, but don't lose your humanity and your common decency and manners. And that can still be there, but take whatever opportunity. Maybe it takes a little bit more of an effort. I think that the masks are a barrier. We have always had psychological barriers with people. And now sometimes the mask serves as another barrier of, I don't really want to talk to you. And this is awkward. You can't hear me. So there's a little bit of an awkwardness, but so that I would counteract that with intention. That's it.
Great. Simona, you're dealing with clients 24/7 pretty much. And at that level that you deal with, have you seen any hesitancy come in or anything you've had to do differently perhaps to get people together?
Not really. Actually, the pandemic was my busiest year in the matchmaking business since I've been in business for over a decade. So I think more than ever, people were searching out a significant other. I think people are more appreciative of realizing how important it is to have a significant other, a quality person in your life, because a lot of people ended up finding themselves alone, not having anyone to turn to, having to go through this pandemic by themselves. But then on the other hand, there were a lot of toxic relationships that ended up happening during the pandemic too, because some people would be desperate and just not want to be alone, and then just get together with anyone, just not to be alone. And then that's why there was the highest, domestic violence rate was during the pandemic. So that's something to think about too. So there were a lot of toxic relationships that were created during the pandemic because people didn't want to be alone. But then on the other hand, there was a lot of marriages, a lot of pandemic babies that happened, with my agency. I mean, there was tons of beautiful things that happened. So I don't know. I think what I took from this pandemic is that people really just started appreciating more having that quality person in their life, to be able to go through something like a pandemic together, to have that support. And also I noticed that it wasn't anymore all about, oh, what's the chicest restaurant we can go to. It was like, no, let's stay home and cook together, or let's plan a picnic, or let's go to the beach and enjoy the simple things of life. I think it humbled a lot of people. So I think there were a lot of good things that came out of the pandemic.
Okay, that's a great answer. And Dr. Rico, you live in New York City. You've got a lot of people around you. What have you been observing both professionally and personally during this pandemic in terms of people's interactions?
I actually live out in Los Angeles, but
I'm sorry.
That's okay. But
lots of people there too.
I'm from New York, but
Right.
And LA is a car culture. Everybody's in their car, which is this natural isolation. But you saw. I think what's interesting. I saw. Simone pointing out, people appreciating quality time because you're not going out to these restaurants, you're going maybe for a hike, you're doing the simple things, which are the things I always like doing. And the thing about LA, in LA, it's all about Instagramming where you went on your date, and showing like some ridiculous restaurant where it's like, $20 for a crouton or something. I don't know. And now people, I saw more getting together and doing the simple things and hiking and cooking together. I did see a lot of people retreating to their computer and their social medias, and that became a lot of their world too. And there were a lot, you hear about people making entire relationships online and never actually meeting the people because they couldn't, they were afraid, or they were at a distance. So you see, I saw some of that. But as far as from a medical perspective, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of heart attacks, hypertension, arrhythmias, because it was a major social stress in society, because you had two stresses. One, the stress of worrying about getting sick, and then two, the trying to hide and not taking care of yourself because you're staying indoors. So you're not going for a checkup. You're not going to the gym. You're not doing the things you normally try to do to stay fit, or even just following up. And so people were actually, people gained the COVID-20, they called it, right? So you saw health issues, and I guess the other thing I saw is that anything that happened was magnified for the good and bad. So like you alluded to, like relationships got really intense really quickly. People would get married quickly, have kids quickly, or breakups would happen very quickly, and things would get intense too, because you have people trying to almost like let's stay together because they have to stay together because they can't go out, and you kind of and things get more intense, and we see heartbreaks, and we see people not getting along because they're now together long periods of time they hadn't been before. So it's been an interesting, especially out here in LA, where it's already spread out and people move around in their cars, and they're in the little car bubble world, and you kind of saw that whole range, and it's interesting seeing a social media world inflicted with a pandemic that drives people inside, except for Florida, where people just party outside, didn't care, and that was another story. But yeah, I saw people retreating to social media a lot, and posting about what they did at home, what they did in their life, it makes me, it'd be interesting to see how we come back to being normal again, and how we are able to go out again, and and maybe what lesson do we learn and keep? Like, maybe it's not as important to go to all these places. Maybe it's more important to keep it simple. Maybe it's more important to talk instead of being in a place where you can't hear your conversation. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, there'll be a whole bunch of pandemic babies. There'll be the pandemic generation that get to talk about how they were conceived during the pandemic. So
how are you doing, Dr. Sue, with timing, by the way?
Yes, I have to go, but I just wanted to, there's so much wisdom here, and I just really appreciated listening to all of your perspectives and connect. And I think we should do this again and hear a part 2 at some point about
absolutely
all the survival strategies and the tips, because I love hearing different professionals from different angles, what they're seeing. So thank you so much, Michael and Melissa, for having me, and so great to
pleasure as always.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Thank
And
you,
I can't wait to listen to the rest of the conversation about what I'm missing. So when is this coming, Michael?
We're going to have it out right in time for Valentine's Day.
Perfect. I want to hear all the wisdom that I'm missing, but thank you for having me.
All the best. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
There's also been a division happening in this country, which I believe has been affecting a lot relationships, where now people are choosing partners based on vaccine, no vaccine, and all this kind of, situation, mask, no mask, conservative, Democrats, etc. How are you feeling both? Because both of you are in LA, and it's very prominent in here. The division has been so violent, with the riots and everything. What's your thoughts on all this?
And can I throw in, a quick anecdote to underline what Melissa just said? Talking to a buddy a few weeks ago, I can't name him too bad, but he's a TV personality here in British Columbia. He said, "Oh, Michael, I met this wonderful woman. She ticked all the boxes. We had one date, and then we were on the phone last night. And she said, 'What do you think of vaccines?' And he goes, 'What do I think about vaccines?' And then they realized they have a problem. They were on opposite sides of that fence, but a lot of that going on. But what do you guys think about this?"
Well, it seems to be definitely a deal breaker in my matchmaking service, because now in our profile, people have to fill out whether or not they've been vaccinated. And if they're not, especially my doctor clients, they're just appalled if a person has not been vaccinated. I have this one pediatric emergency room doctor, and he's just like, I don't understand why people would not get vaccinated. I mean, you know, you could give this to a child or to an elderly person, and it's just so careless. So he will not date anyone that has not been vaccinated because of the fact that, you know, he could then spread it to someone in his emergency room, or and then it's just become very political. You're right, Melissa. So, and then it's just like you're a Trumper and you're a vaxxer, and it's just really sad how it's divided people, and it affects dating. So it's frustrating because I feel that, well, I think politics should not affect the relationship. Whether you believe in Trump or not, you know, whatever, just this is your relationship.
But Simona, don't you think like politics has certain core values, which goes with certain way of living and bringing up your children, and, you know, like, isn't there, like, you being a matchmaker, I mean, you know, like, isn't that politic important for a lot of people, particularly?
No, it's very important, absolutely, but I think that some people just take it to a whole nother level.
Another level, extreme.
But it depends on the politics too, right? I mean, I think you know, maybe 50 years ago, the things that separated Democrats from Republicans are a lot different than what separate them today, and also the, you know, it's cyclical. You know, if you want to go back to, I mean, I was a history major in college, so I have all this American history knowledge. There's a president named Grover Cleveland who was elected, and then not elected, and elected again. He did two terms presidency, non-consecutively, and it was at an era of muckraking. He was a bachelor, supposedly had illegitimate children, and they actually campaigned bringing these kids out, promoting these kids in the press. This is, you know, where's my pa gone to the White House, ha ha ha. And so there was an era where it was dirty pool, and people did anything to do to win, and the politicians that won did anything to do to stay in power, and it was the spoil system, and they appointed their friends in cabinet positions. And then you have, you know, reform, right? And then we had, and then now it's kind of back again. It's reared its ugly head, where politics is really not so much issues with so much personalities, and so maybe today, if someone's, you know, polarized and say, hey, I'm a pro-Trump, that might make me a little nervous, you know, because I'm, you know, I have very strong opinions on how the pandemic was handled during the last administration. So it's maybe different now, but yeah, the vaccine, no vaccine. I was a physician. I had people, you know, approaching me saying, could you write me a medical exemption? I said, well, what's your exemption? Well, I think I'll react badly to it. Well, that's not really good enough. And then socially, I've had people even close to me, even in, you know, that were anti-vaxxers, and you have to try to explain to them why what the risk is, the social responsibility behind that. But it's very tough. I mean, I'm a COVID survivor. I was hospitalized with COVID pneumonia. I was a week with double pneumonia in the hospital, and I got infected by an anti-vaxxer who got COVID and didn't bother telling me that they didn't have vaccine or that they were sick. And it was pretty. I remember being in the hospital and just, you know, focusing on air and breathing and looking at the clock, and every time the second hand swept around, I said, oh, great, I'm here one more minute. That's terrific. Wow. So I think, you know, it's important to share these experiences, because that's how bad it can get, and that's what you're trying to protect people from. And even though you may not want to get vaccinated because you're afraid of some side effect, but, you know, if you cough or touch somebody, you know, your parent or your aunt or your grandmother or anybody, and then they get sick. But yeah, I could see how this could be a polarizing thing. But I think you have to be, with everything, you have to approach it not the way they're doing it on TV by throwing arrows, but talk and say, let's talk about this, because
have a dialogue.
A dialogue. At the end of the day, you know, people decent people anyway want to do the decent thing, right? They're just afraid, or because fear drives what people do, and misinformation feeds into fear, and a lot of this is really, like FDR said, nothing to fear but fear itself. At the worst time of the country, back then, it was similar. People were poor as the Great Depression. They were worried about communism, worried about what's going on in Europe, the Nazis, and the worst thing was misinformation and people running with bad information. That's the same thing now. Bad information creates fear. So as long as you open a dialogue and just hear people and be patient and try to take them in and try to figure out what's that thing that makes them afraid, and that's how we could get along, really. And eventually it'll sort itself out. I mean, we're gonna, we'll live to see another.
Eureka, because we can have like an hour, 2 hours conversation on the pandemic.
Sure.
But it's Valentine's special.
Yes.
Yay, Valentine's! Yay!
Special, people.
Yes, Valentine's is very special for me.
I know. It's like, let's
Talk about happy thoughts.
Yeah.
Love.
Oh, exactly.
We do.
That's
need
a great
to talk
idea.
about heavy conversations. It's nice also to bring it back to love.
Yes.
But you made a point, and I'm 100% with you on everything you said. But talking about fear, actually, let's jump into dating dating online and technology, and everybody's been Zooming dating because of the pandemic, and people have been distancing and everything. So Tinder, Bumble, The League, all these apps. I can see Rico's face right now going
I've never heard of them. Can you explain them to me, Melissa?
I don't believe you, Michael.
Let's not pretend here, okay? Everybody at this point have heard of those apps. Okay.
Look, he's swiping right now.
I know. I'm like,
oh, darn, you caught me.
All right. Well, Simona, that's a question for you. So what do you think of all these apps? But I'm talking specifically the swiping right and left. Do you think that's damaging to love and relationship, or did you think it just helped? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the whole swiping, whatever that it is it really fuels serial dating. And also it is because of the thought, if I swipe more, there's maybe the bigger, better deal on the other end. It's very distracting because you're constantly, it's almost like an addiction to find that new profile, and it's like you're never satisfied. So I think that online dating, I was dating online, and I think it's really overwhelming too, because you're bombarded with all these random profiles and you don't know who the person is or what their intentions are. So I actually researched this, that Cornell University did a study that 80% of people lie on online dating profiles in the United States. Yeah. And that's only the people that admit to lying. Yeah. So can you imagine how many people are lying? So but that's why my business works so well. So it's a good thing that online dating is so awful, because it works for me.
It did work, because initially when Tinder was started, it actually opened the gates to be able to meet someone you would, in your normal life, you would never meet, and it opened the gate to meet new people, to, because it would just be on pictures, you wouldn't know that person, I think at the beginning it was actually good, and then it became toxic, and it started getting a bad rep, and everybody jumped in with different intentions, promotions. A lot of people are using it to promote their website, actors and artists, and it's not anymore about love. And as you said, there's way too many data people, and you get lost in translation. You could spend hours and still not have one person to talk to.
It's humanly impossible to weed through all these profiles and verify them. It's impossible. There's too much quantity and not enough quality. So I'm sure it works in some cases, but
yeah, I'm sure there has been the exceptions, but a lot of the time people, when you talk about those apps, they're not they don't say yes.
But it's for people that also need a lot of time on their hands. For example, my clients don't have that time to scour through countless profile all day and figure out who's real and who's not. And you know, their time and their reputation is important. That's why they would never be caught on online dating sites. And that's why I started my company. You know, it was the same thing for me. I just couldn't deal with the online dating. It was just crazy, way too much. It was impossible to weed through the profiles. I mean, I don't know how people do it. It's a full-time job.
It's like McDonald's. I always say those apps is like fast food. You just go for a burger.
Yes.
And tomorrow you need 2, 3, 4, and you're never satisfied. And it's just an addiction.
I so agree with you.
It's like fast food. It's a fast food dating thing.
Well, yeah, it's quantity, not quality, right?
Exactly.
But the irony here, and what's interesting, is that people go there to find love. And it's just, well, I'm going to find a relationship. And it's like going to McDonald's and asking for filet mignon. I mean, I don't know. It's just
I think people just don't know any better, and people are lonely, you know? So what's the alternative, you know?
Yeah. What do you think, Rico? Because I've been seeing your facial expression.
And also, if I could throw in there, you produced the movie, you know, the love story between Frank Sinatra and Ava Gardner, and connected to this question: does that kind of love of that age, does it still exist in this world of dating apps?
Well, in the world of dating apps, probably not, because because you have to actually meet somebody, you have to invest time and you have to invest emotion. I think the dating apps allows people to meet virtually and never really meet in person. I mean, there's a lot of people have conversations or they have text relationships where they're dating on text and they break up on text, never having met in person. You know,
so true.
And they're like, oh, I'm talking to somebody who, I have a girlfriend. I'm talking to her. I go, well, what do you mean? Have you met her? Not yet, but we're talking. And where does she live? Well, she lives, you know, in London. I go, okay, when are you going to meet her? I don't know. And it's just, it's this whole thing. And then it's funny. I never thought much about dating apps. And my niece once said, come on, Uncle Rico, why don't you join one of them? I'm like, okay. So I remember trying one, and it's like people like ask for money. People want to know, I need a plane ticket, or hey, do you invest in cryptocurrency? I'm like, what? I mean, it's like this got nothing to do with, oh, hey, I heard you're making a movie. Here's my headshot. I'm like, what? I mean, it's got nothing to do with dating. And what I think you hit on, though, the option paralysis of people swiping. I mean, we have like 1,000 channels to watch. You have all these things, all these options. And I think it's what's the harm. The harm is that, you know, when you're in a relationship, you want to be committed. You know, you want to be in it, you know, for the long haul. You want to work things through. And the problem with having these choices, these ideas of virtual choices, it's kind of it's. I mean, not for my generation, but for younger people, that this is like the norm of everything, you know, being on their phone and swiping and that.
It's that instant gratification thing.
Correct. And what's going to happen? And it can get even a little more ridiculous. I've talked to people who, there was a book. Alex Huxley wrote a book, Brave New World, right? And in the Brave New World, people don't meet anymore. They meet virtually, and then they have babies virtually too. They donate their eggs and genetic material, and they're incubated in a place, and the babies are born in a different place. And there's people talking about finding mates, not to marry, but just to create babies and have surrogates, so they can have their children raised someplace. It's getting more bizarre as technology grows, because people are like, the more people have different needs and wants online, it's not even about love anymore. It's about finding these things they're gonna have. They want to have the ideal person to have a child with, and the ideal situation, and the ideal this. It's not about, hey, we're in love, we want to try and make it work, we're going to, you know, go through it, we're going to grow together, we're going to fail together, we're going to succeed together, you know, I mean, in it to win it, when's that going to happen? I fear for that. I fear for that, because people look for the parachute, swipe right. Hey, if it doesn't work out, there's somebody else out there, or someone's going to say something that's going to sound like they're out there. But romance, like Frank and Ava, I think it's there. You just got to have the the bravery to be vulnerable and to dive in and not be afraid to have your heart broken. I think if you're not afraid to have your heart broken, then you could make something really magical. That's it's no good unless you're willing to risk it all. I think that's really what you gotta really do. I think it still exists. You just gotta be, brave enough to be vulnerable.
I agree. And I think for our generation, that is very much true. We still believe in that. And we believe in working hard on a relationship and working through issues. But the new generation, for example, my daughter, she's 22 years old. Oh my gosh. It's just like, there's a little tiny problem and they don't want to work on it. It's like, okay, next. No, I can't deal with it. It's so easily disposable, like we said, the instant gratification. If it's not there, next. They don't work on it anymore. And then she was telling me last night, she's like, well, Mom, soon we're just all going to meet in the metaverse. So we're not even going to meet in real life. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy. There's like no more emotion, no more feelings. It's just all hiding behind the screen, and I don't know, it's really scary.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine in Houston. She's this attractive Ukrainian American lady, and she has a circle of girlfriends, and none of them can seem to be able to find their mate. But she was saying something very interesting, is that we've been on Tinder and these swiping apps so much. When we actually go out to a restaurant or a bar, we subconsciously swipe through the men we see at the bar. In other words, like basing whether to approach them or not on their physical appearance, rather than going up, maybe taking a risk, breaking the ice and having a conversation. That was fascinating. Melissa, you and I will have to go down to Houston, I think, and have a panel live with this group and get more on that.
Houston?
Yes.
Why Houston?
Oh, that's where they live, and that's where
gotcha.
They're having problems with getting off of Tinder and going into the real world.
Gotcha.
And like I said,
Yeah, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah,
exactly.
I got a little bit sidetracked here. I'm like, Houston. But yeah, no, definitely. But, it's interesting because the whole technology brought us together somehow more than ever. Like right now, you can date someone in a different state, in a different country. It just widened the opportunity. At the same time, we're so much further away from our own heart. We're just projecting our own desires, I think, a lot on, Rico, you missed the conversation earlier, but we were talking about how fairy tales affect young kids and their projection on romantic love and the ideal romantic love, utopia. Is there one person for you in this life? When we say, oh, I haven't found Mr. Right. I mean, is there a one Mr. Right, or is there several Mr. Rights? What is Mr. Right? I mean, what is Mr. Right for you is different from Mr. Right for someone else, And there's all this misconception and, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your Prince Charming. I'm like, Prince Charming? What is Prince Charming? Oh, the rescuer in the fairy tale, because you can't rescue yourself, right? As a female, all this kind of ideas. And anyhow, so it's fascinating. I don't know how we're gonna manage with love later on in life, and it's very alarming for the next generation, I think, because most they haven't at all been exposed to organic relationships
but the next generation isn't looking at fairy tales. They're watching SpongeBob SquarePants. So
SpongeBob, there you go.
There's your fairy tale.
Fairy tale.
Fairy tale,
Oh my
SpongeBob. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Great. Toys. What is it? Toy something.
Toy Story.
Yeah. At least there's Wonder Woman. Right?
Thank God for her. We love her.
I had a thought here. I don't want to age myself, but in the old days, so I come from the Ukrainian community, which is very, very traditional. But in our community, as well as some other ethnocultural communities, when we were younger, we kind of subconsciously almost looked for a mate that would tick all the boxes, not here, but with our parents. Like, this is someone I really want to bring home for my mom to meet. And a lot of that happened. I'm sure a lot of my friends will agree from the community, but then what happens, it doesn't work out because you've ticked the boxes for them rather than for you. And in fact, in our community, we have fairly high divorce rate. But wondering if you guys had any thoughts like that, and especially more traditional communities, Do kids maybe, have the wrong parameters, if I can put it that way? Do we try to please our parents too much? Have you seen any of that?
Rico?
Oh, I mean, once upon a time there were matchmakers, right? I mean, and that's what they did. And actually, in certain communities, there's still matchmaking. You sit down with a rabbi or a bishop, and they find somebody, and this is the person for you, and it's almost like a contract. This is your wife, or this is your husband, and there you go. And you have people witness the contract. You don't break that contract for anything, and then people stay married because they signed the contract. And it's not. I mean, most of the time it's not love, but it's funny because one of my favorite patients. She lived to be 94. She was married 5 times, and she said the only person more romantic than me was Elizabeth Taylor, because she got married 8 times. And they were great friends, and. And I guess, I mean, and she said to me, because she would sit down, she goes, look at me, she goes, my first husband was for love. I was totally in love with him, and he made a movie about our romance, and then he left me for the woman that played me in the movie. Okay, so here it is, my greatest love leaves me, makes a movie, and the woman that plays me wins an Academy Award playing me in the movie. And when I try to win him back by getting pregnant, he just changes the end of the movie, makes the actress get pregnant too in the movie, and it makes the movie even better. And the movie wins the Academy Award. It's such a heartbreaking movie. The next guy I married because I respected him, but never really was in love with him. And then after that, I just tried to find people that didn't get bored with, and that was husbands 3, 4, and 5. And she looked at me, she goes, love never lasts. And I said, you can't say that. I'm telling you, it doesn't last. But you got to find it once, and you can't be afraid that find it and lose it, because eventually you're going to get your heart broken. And if you're waiting for that one person to not break your heart, you're going to be waiting your whole life, because there's no guarantees. And she also said this too. She said the challenge is this, because she was very successful. She was probably most brilliant women I've ever met. She wrote television, won awards. Politics were perfect. I mean, there's pictures of her with JFK and anyway. So she said to me, the thing is this, we're intelligent creatures, and we're literate and read, and we want to meet people that we respect, because because when we respect them and we understand them, that we can build something. But at the same time, there's a part of us that has desire. We're still these creatures that have desire and attraction. And so, in a perfect world, the person we desire is the person we respect, and that's the same at the same time. But it doesn't always happen that way, and we're conflicted, because we meet someone that we respect and admire, but we don't feel that desire, that thing, the animal thing that makes us want to run home to them or be with them, or there's people that that we're attracted to, but then we can't really have a conversation or respect what they say, because they're just not really where they need to be for us. But yet we have this attraction toward those, and as long as we have those two conflicting things, it's always going to be tough to reconcile the desire and the respect and admiration, and you need those two things to keep somebody with you until she said, till we're old and shrill, and those physical things or other things don't really matter, and it's just the cord remains, and then you're living your life together, and it's a tough thing. And she said that this is why, and plus, once upon a time, people lived to only be 60 years old, right? They died young, so you got married young, and you had your family, and you died. People now live to be 80, 90 years old. And she said, she goes, I couldn't think of living with somebody for 60 years. I go, so those are some of the things she pointed out. And I thought, I still remember that, even though she's been gone a few years, but that's, I think there's something in there. What do you think, Simona? This is what you do, right? What do you think about that?
What was the question again?
reconciling.
So pleasing your parents basically
pleasing your
what you're saying?
parents, or finding someone that your parents respect, or finding someone that you respect and admire, as opposed to someone that you also have that desire for. How do you reconcile respect?
No, I agree with you,
desire?
you know, that you can really desire someone, but then you don't really respect what they stand for, right? Or what they've done with their life, and vice versa. But I really just see that with clients that are really wealthy, where their children come to my service, or the parents will pay for the service and say, okay, I want my son to meet a woman. She has to have this religion. She has to come from a certain income level. She has to have gone to an Ivy League school, and all these check boxes. And then it's like, yeah, but I mean, then at the end of the day, is he going to be attracted to all those check boxes, right? So, but I see that more with the really wealthy, clients. I think other people are a little more open-minded, and I think it's just because of how they don't want to mesh other families together. They want to, I guess, keep them on a certain level, which is a shame, because I see a lot of those relationships end up in a loveless marriage, right? And then they end up cheating, and it's just a miserable life. But unfortunately, it seems like in a certain level of wealth, that's still the way to go. And even also certain, like I've seen it a lot in the Asian community too. They're very, very particular in who their children marry. I have this one physician, and he says, no, I have to bring her home to my mom and my dad, and if they don't approve. And it's like, okay, but the girls you're attracted to are not what your mom and dad are going to approve of, you know? So there's that dilemma. So, yeah, I mean, you
don't check all the boxes. It's not, there should be like some things, top 3, I guess.
Yes.
Probably deal breakers or non-negotiable, but then at some point you just have to be flexible with yourself first, and then with other people. But I mean, talking about non-negotiable, what are your top 3 non-negotiable and deal breakers in relationships, and why? And Simona or Rico?
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying what are the deal breakers? Well, I think that I believe you in a relationship, you need respect, loyalty, compassion, integrity. And what the deal breakers are, cheaters, arrogant people, dishonesty. And I think those are pretty self-explanatory.
Right. Okay.
So you probably won't be dating anyone from Washington, D.C. Just kidding.
There you go.
And Hollywood is just,
Hollywood, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Been there, done that.
Dr. Rico, how about you?
Hey, I mean, deal breakers are cruel to you. If people are cruel, I mean, you can't really be around them, because then you're trusting them with children and the way they respond. So that's a big one. And I think people who are addicted to, you know, either alcohol, drugs, or actually some people are addicted to violence, I mean, or that pathway. So so that's probably a deal breaker as well. And also, you know, not being open. You know, it's like you have to be able to be curious about the new things, right? I mean, it doesn't mean you have to read War and Peace, but you know, it's okay to say, hey, what was that book about? Or being open to new things and new ideas and new people, because, you know, life is about growing and changing. But really the cruelty is the main thing, because if there's someone who's capable of cruelty, it means there's something emotionally about them that they never really got over, or something that's blocked up, and then they're capable, and that's their way of handling things, and that's a lot of work to deal with, to undo, to unravel, to solve, and that's really something that it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to deal with, and it's sad for them, but it's not. You know, I think the thing I learned as a doctor is that I'm not supposed to be fixing people when I meet them. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be just, meeting them as being in a relationship, as opposed to finding people and trying to, oh, if I could just fix this, they'd be great, and that's I think people who heal or people who treat, they find themselves doing that, or they think they can do that because, hey, I could fix somebody's heart problem, so maybe I could fix somebody's, other issues, and it's not always the case.
Well, you do mend hearts by day and break them at night.
I love that line.
Talking about breaking hearts, let's talk about, your unusual career life path here, because my goodness, I mean, I know you, and I don't know you as the doctor. I know you more as the actor, as a friend. But how did you manage to combine both career at the same time and be successful in both? How?
That's a great question. Everyone always asks me that. I mean, I think things choose you. And I loved science as a boy, and science was like my escape to trying to understand. I grew up poor, and I've actually, Valentine's is important to me because, according to my mom, I was conceived during makeup sex between her and my dad on Valentine's Day.
Wow.
It was a Valentine's Day. My father was in a restaurant nightclub business, and my father basically, he'd come home at noon the next day, because after work he hang out with the guys till the sun came up, gambling and playing cards and all that. And there was a Valentine's Day that he hadn't been home in 2 days, and he came home with a bunch of money he won from a crap game, and he brought some diamond pendant that he bought with the money he won. And my mom said, I don't care about money, and I want you. And they had a big argument. And then they made up, and then she was trying to leave him, and she goes, and he got me pregnant again. I got stuck, and I had you 9 months later in November, and all 12 pounds of me. So yeah, so I guess if you're a product of that, your life is not going to be normal. So I love science, and that's what led me to be a doctor. But see, with my mom would wait up for my dad, and I would sit there and keep her company. And what did we do? We watched old movies. And so by watching these movies, that was like our other escape. And we'd sit there and we talk about movie stars and acting, and the things we saw in the movies were places we couldn't afford to go to, worlds. And they were romances where everybody where people, they kissed at the end, happy things worked out at the end, and the good guys always won. And so I guess between the movies always imprinted this thing of hope, and so I always loved the theater for that way, and the science made me understand the physical world, and as I went along, it just things would pull me. I became a cardiologist. I came out to LA to work at Cedars-Sinai. My patients are in show business, and people started like pulling me in. Hey, you got this look. Why don't you read this play for me, or do this role for me? And then I started doing theater and started studying, and became a member of the Actors Studio, and started doing film. Chekhov was a physician and a writer and a playwright. He always said medicine was his wife and theater was his mistress, and I always said, well, I've never been married. So I guess if I was married, I would be taking kids to soccer practice and not doing a play on the weekend. So it always kind of came to me, and it keeps coming to me, because they're both ways of understanding the human condition, either by listening to somebody's heart, or listening to them tell you their symptoms, or listening to an actor on stage, or working on a set and trying to connect in a scene. So and the opportunities keep coming, and I feel lucky, blessed that I'm in a situation like that. And a lot of my patients were people who gave me work, and a lot of people I meet on movies became patients because they found out I was a doctor. And there's a lot of stories of guys whose life I saved because we were doing a movie together, and they started having chest pain. They said, "Yeah, talk to Rico as a doctor." And they said, "What?" I go, "Yeah, let's go." And
a heart attack, and you're on set.
Yeah, that's happened more than a few times.
Wow.
Yeah, and so a lot of people, have a Rico story. Yeah, Rico saved my life. We're doing a movie or a play, and I was having pain, and he says I was a doctor. I thought he was kidding me, and he took me in, and he fixed it. He took care of me.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's
I
impressive.
had a question for Simona about the work you do behind the scenes with your foundation, but just quickly, Dr. Rico, may sound like an odd question, but people might want to know, how does that actually feel to hold a human heart in your hands and revive it? We're talking about affairs of the heart, but then we have the heart.
Well, I'm not a cardiac surgeon. I don't cut people open.
That's how we're trying to keep it light.
Right. But I do keep the heart going, and I tell you something. It's
Signing off.
What's come on, Simone, hang in. What's beautiful about it is that we're all, no matter how different we are on the outside,
Yeah,
we're all the same on the inside. And this magical, wonderful organ, the heart, which basically since the time we're like from 7 weeks, it starts beating, and it beats 60 times a minute, like 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours a day for 365 days a year for 80, 90, how many years we're alive. It does that, and it does that with great fidelity. And the heart is very faithful by beating and keeping us going. And at the same time, the heart has chaos. It has millions of cells with all create electricity that, if left to their own devices, would create chaos. And you see that when the heart dies, it fibrillates. All the cells are kind of doing their own thing, but they've all agreed to beat in synchrony. So you have organized chaos and synchrony. And this is like the magic of the human heart. And I think it's almost like a symbolic of people. We're all kind of chaos if left alone, but we can agree to be synchronous and work together to kind of keep us alive and keep us going. So to me, it's the most incredible organ in the body. And
I also read somewhere that the heart has an electromagnetic field of how many feet that it reaches out?
Oh yeah.
That is so interesting to me.
Anytime you have an electrical current, you create a magnetic field. I mean, it's a micro Weber, whatever the term is, but it's there. And it's funny because, other animals like whales and marine mammals, they feel the magnetic vibe of the heart of other mammals, and they hear the heartbeats because sound travels better in water. And they're very connected to that way, that magnetic field and the sound of other people. I think subconsciously humans are too, except we're so inundated with external stimuli like sounds and phones ringings and all these things and text pings and all that we don't really hear these things. But truly, when I walk into a patient's room, I mean, I feel the energy, what's going on. Sure. And that's a way of telling, okay, this person's sick, this person's afraid, this person needs me to hold their hand. And it's funny, you talk about acting, that's the same exact thing you're supposed to do in acting, is be in the moment and be so attentive to the other person that you're trying to figure out what's their emotion needs at that second. It's the same thing I do with patients, that energy you feel. And I think that's the connection that being a heart doctor is for me.
Well, you sound like an amazing doctor. Are you taking on any new patients?
I am. I always am.
We're good. Melissa and I are going to have to take a little bit of a commission here.
Okay, let's get into Simona. I just wanted to talk to you about your foundations.
Yeah.
So there's 2 things you've been working on. So obviously you have Perfect 12 Introductions, which has been going for a long time and it's very successful. But you also have Maria Gruber Foundation in honor of your mother. And
my late mom, yes.
And Ask Simi also, and we'll get into this in a minute. But tell us about how did you start Maria Gruber Foundation? What was the situation, basically, the mindset?
Well, the reason I started the Maria Gruber Foundation, my mom, her name was Maria Gruber. She died from stage 4 colorectal cancer. And, but she had cancer since I was 16 years old. So I had to, I think I'm in some ways better trained than some doctors, because I had to experience and understand so much about this disease since I was 16. And it was just heartbreaking to watch the person that you love so much, and she was my soulmate, suffer with this excruciating pain and literally being eaten from the inside out, eaten alive by this, I call cancer demon. But it was just horrible. And I was never prepared for when the doctor said, oh, she's ready for hospice, there's nothing we can do anymore. And then when they brought her home to my house to understand, everything that's thrown at you, you have to, they have the oxygen tanks. They're so loud in the house, they're pushing the oxygen into her because her breathing is slowing down because she's now in hospice, and they're pumping her full of drugs. And then she had this death rattle that I didn't know what the heck that was. I said, what's a death rattle? What's this now? And then the next thing is, oh, she's transcending. And I'm like, what the heck does transcending mean? You know, so there was so much traumatic experience that I was not prepared for. So the reason I started the foundation is not because I'm looking to find a cure for cancer. There's plenty of those out there, but it's more about helping the people that are left behind who have lost a loved one to terminal cancer. Because I was so overwhelmed running a business, being a single mom, taking care of my daughter, bringing her to school, bringing my mom to doctor's appointments, getting her to right doctors. Do I do radiation? Do I do chemo? Do I not? Are there alternative medicines? And when she comes home, what do you do? And it's just so overwhelming. And then in the end, you know, the hospital bills, planning the funeral, it's just incredibly overwhelming. So the foundation is designed to help the people left behind after losing their loved one to terminal cancer.
Mm.
Okay.
Wow.
What a fabulous mission. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost my mother to throat cancer as well, and it was a long, long time. And all of us and all of our siblings had to become mini experts on cancer. You know, we salute you so much, Simona, for doing this, and God bless you and your mother, her memory. Doctor, quickly.
By the way, we will post the links of the foundation under the episode. So
absolutely. Doctor,
oh, thank you.
I had a question.
You don't have to do that, but okay.
No, we will.
Well, we will do it. Yeah. Yeah. Doctor, I had a quick question because I actually live in the Pacific Northwest, and we have a lot of cancer treatment institutions here, very famous ones. It seems to a lot of us, because I have healthy friends who are getting cancer, and not to veer off too much from affairs of the heart, but a lot of money has gone into cancer research and trying to, you know, beat this animal. But do you feel we're getting closer to solving this? It robs humanity of so many good lives yet. You know, we talk about pandemic deaths, but this is huge. Any thoughts on that?
I agree. Cancer has taken many people away from us before a time. I think two things. One, prevention and detection is very important. I can't tell you during this pandemic how people have neglected those surveillance tests. So women not getting mammograms or pap smears, people not getting colonoscopies, not getting prostate exams, and then coming back 2 years later with a breast lump or a nodule in their lung or a colon cancer. So we're one is and that's why I think organizations like this are very important. And Simone, bless you, that's amazing what you did, and everything you said made me. I was getting teared up, but that's I've seen that, and the fact that you're doing that, you're so brave for doing that. But getting the word out, detection, you know, get those exams, get those screening tests. And then as far as the treatment goes, we're getting better, yes, because the treatments are more biologic, more targeted towards specific cells, the molecules which make cancers grow and make blood vessels. We're better at that now. Before, they were like these very toxic drugs, which basically stopped every cell in your body from growing, and your hair fell out, you had ulcers, and the cure was worse than the disease in some cases. So we're getting better. But once again, it's really about that early detection, because if you can pick something up at the earliest stage, even the most horrible cancer can actually be cured. I mean, that's important. So yes, we're getting better with the cure, but that really can't. The most important way to intervene is that early detection and screening, and knowing your genetics, because a lot of these tumors do run in families, and now we have methods to measure your genetics in a way that's private. This is important, that you know about it. It doesn't have to be public records for an insurance company to exclude you and all these kind of things. There's a politics behind that too now, but we can learn about that so we can become our best advocate to go out and get those tests early. And I can't tell you how many people who, you know, people come to me for other non-cardiologic things, because, you know, I have like this Columbo thing that I sit there and I look at someone and I think, oh, something bothers me, and I do these tests and I find things that people, you know, hadn't known they had before, because I go the extra step, because, you know, something doesn't feel right or look right or sound right. Or I'll ask questions. Hey, when's the last time you had this check? And they'll say, well, my primary is going to send me. I go, well, how about I send you? And so, because it's about being proactive. So I think we are educating people to be proactive, understanding cancer, and don't be afraid to look, because there's a fear. Well, if I don't look, I won't find anything. You know, it's like not checking for termites until you fall to the floor. You know, it's like, so you have to really, that's the big education out there. It's like, no matter how good the cure is, you got to do the prevention. You save more lives with that.
Yeah,
I so agree. And you know what this taught me is to be really diligent. And, you know, a lot of times doctors will say, you're too young, you don't need to do this test. For example, colonoscopy, I was told, oh my gosh, you're way too young. You don't do it until 45 or 50 even. Now they lowered it to 45, I believe. But they said, no, you don't need it. And I said, wait a minute, my grandfather died of it. My mother died of it. It would make sense that I should get tested. And I did. And everything was great, you know, and I do my mammograms, but I'm just terrified of this disease because I saw what it does to you. And I think you're right, Rico, the preventative is so important, and living a healthy lifestyle, but I think also living a positive mindset lifestyle, you know, because I think stress is a huge problem, you know, for contracting cancer. So anyway, it's just,
such a pregnant reminder
very
to
emotional.
us to keep on supporting these organizations, especially yours. I love the mission of it, of helping people understand and cope more. So I think that, Dr. Rico, I have a feeling you've acquired a lot of new fans, perhaps more females than males during this episode, but any more appearances by your good self on the big screen? Or are you working on anything else where we might see you?
Yeah, well, you could still watch Frank and Ava on Amazon Prime Video. It's there, and you could see that romance.
He makes a very Frank Sinatra, by the way. I've watched it, so.
Thank you.
I'm a little biased, but.
Thank you. And there's a couple of films. I did a film with Eric Roberts called My Dinner with Eric, where and so kind of a humorous, eclectic film. I did another movie called My Last Best Friend that's coming out this summer. And I just got back from Athens about a month ago doing a film called The Greek Job, and I played this not so nice guy, and that's in a castle above Athens and holding somebody political prisoner. So we have some things coming out. Yeah.
Wow, you've been busy, huh?
Yeah. You know, well, it's you have to. You have to keep moving, right? You have to be positive.
Pushing, positive, and
absolutely.
And Simona, Ask Simi. What is Ask Simi?
Oh, well, Ask Simi, well, I think supporting the growth and empowering young women raises the quality of life for everyone. So the reason I started Ask Simi is because what I noticed, not just with my daughter, but just in general, that social media is just so misleading to teens and young adults. And they're just so impressionable, and even adults. And they just become so full of self-doubt, and a lot of them even suicidal, because they compare themselves to these altered fake images on social media. And a lot of the plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills are all too eager to jump on the bandwagon and, you know, do surgery on these young kids that aren't even fully developed. So Ask Simi offers sort of a safe haven in the world, much like a mother figure or a sister that they can come to for advice and support without being judged. So that's what Ask Simi is.
It's empowering women.
That is great. That is so great. Thank you. That's excellent. Thank you. Yeah. Wow.
Very, very cool.
We need more of that.
Yeah, no, we do. These surgeons are predatorial. Actually, they use insecurities, and you know, it's like, hey, you know, we look different. We come from different backgrounds. This is our genetics. So why do you want to make us all look the same? It's
exactly.
I can't tell you how. That and this promulgation of antidepressants to every problem here. Just take a bunch of these it's like. I can't. God bless you. That's so amazing. You're doing that, Simona.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll post the link.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, great. I think we're heading up to the top of the hour, and Melissa, if I can, maybe you have one more follow-up question, but I wanted to ask the both of you, and thank you so much for your valuable time. On Valentine's Day, people are going to be listening to this. Do you have any particular message to men or women out there who either have fulfilled hearts or living fulfilled relationships or are a lonely heart? But what is the most important thing we should be thinking of on this day?
I think we should think about that everybody is worthy of love, and to be less judgmental and more open-minded.
Fantastic. Doctor?
I mean, I would echo that. I said, love is just a step away. It's right there. You just have to look for it. And we're all, yeah, like you said, we're all worthy of getting love. And it's when Harry Dean Stanton died, I remember we talked. There was a U2 song. It was like, it's all that you don't leave behind is the love that stays. That stays. So everything.
Yeah.
So remember that the love is what stays.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. Love that.
Like, yeah, no, it's been amazing, I think, to have this conversation. It's, I don't know if you have any plans for Valentine's, but I'm gonna have to work on it now. I forgot about it. I mean,
Yeah,
if I was
Simona,
not
we
doing
may be
the show-
calling, the both of us calling you.
Oh, wait a sec. Oh, no. But no, we forget about love. And I think, but love brings us together, I think. And it's an important conversation to have. You know, we hear a lot about pandemic, division, this, that, war. What about love? You know, I mean, love is why we are here talking right now.
Exactly.
So anyway, on that note, it was lovely to have you both, and also Dr. Sue, who left us obviously on the show, and wishing you, both of you, an amazing day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
And and just be happy and in love. Just find your one.
Likewise.
And happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's, and we hope to be able to reconvene perhaps in person.
That would be great. Let's do that.
In Los Angeles. Let's do that.
I would love that.
Okay.
All right.
Ciao.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Ciao.
Okay, Melissa, that was just a wonderful conversation. I think between the two of us, we managed to get a great group of experts together. There was a good vibe, and I think I'm hoping our dear audience will find also that there was a little bit of something for everyone in this one. So, I wanted to ask you though, Melissa, Richie, Valentine's Day is upon us. Do you look upon it with dread, or do you look upon it as something you're looking forward to, even if you and I are not out there, but we see other couples celebrating?
You and I are not.
Okay,
there.
Cut. No, not us.
We are keeping this, by the way. We are not cutting because I love.
Okay.
I love watching you struggle right now. This is just priceless.
She takes joy in my pain, my discomfort. Yeah, is it something you look upon with dread or excitement? Is it too commercialized? What's your take on Valentine's Day?
Valentine's, look, I had beautiful Valentines when I was in relationships, and I had Valentine's alone. But what I do for Valentine's, if I'm not in a relationship, I treat myself. I have Valentine's with myself. It's love is also about self-love.
Right.
And you know what? If I don't have someone to share my love, I'll share it with myself, and I'll just I'll do some self-care, masks. I'll watch a nice comedy movie. I'll go shopping. And just rekindle that love feeling with myself, because hey, you never know, tomorrow you can meet the one. No, I'm kidding. The ones, because there's several in this lifetime, apparently. I don't know.
That's a really eloquent answer. Did you know I was going to ask that, and did you rehearse it?
What?
That answer you just gave is very nice.
No, it's just me being really smart. That's why I'm single. No, on a serious note, look, I always say, like, a lot of people, if they don't have a partner, they feel a bit left out of Valentine's. But you know what? You cannot give what you don't give yourself first. So give yourself love and have your own kind of Valentine's with yourself, It's as important. And then, you know what? When the one comes in, the one or the ones or whatever, Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, then you'll be ready, because you'll have something to give that is healthy, positive, and generous, just sharing the love. Right. Anyway, I think it was just a love fest right now. Yeah. What about yourself, Michael?
On that note, thank you very much for joining.
What about yourself, Michael?
I thought a lot about myself. No, during the lockdowns, we all spent a lot of time by ourselves. And I was talking to a lot of friends about this actually, is that in order to love somebody, I think you have to love yourself. It sounds maybe over self-indulgent or whatever, but I think it's true. And you have to be comfortable with yourself. And it's almost like the pandemic more revealed to us who we are deep on the inside. And it's hard to put this, but I was kind of pleased with myself because not only did I make it through these torturous lockdowns, but also I found that I'm okay with myself too, that, you know, because I think there are a lot of other people who they don't perhaps function well if they don't have someone with them. And I think
That's
there
what
are
Dr.Sue was saying, like this
yeah,
can help us a lot to be okay with ourselves, with our own presence, and learn how to self-care and self-love. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Whereas those that I think are not comfortable with being alone, being with themselves, and some of those character types, if I can put it that way, I think they not zero date, but they go through a lot of partners because they haven't sorted themselves out first, perhaps. Look, I'm not perfect, but in terms of Valentine's Day, I mean, you know, like so many other things, for example, Christmas, it's become so commercialized, and I think sometimes we lose the focus, the meaning of it, and people feel compelled they have to go out or buy things. But you know, I remember this one Valentine's Day, because a lot of my Valentine's days were spent in some of the most horrible shitholes in the world. You know, countries on the high conflict list. I shouldn't call them that, but anyway, sorry. But yeah, so you're on your own. You're in a foreign environment. You don't know anybody. But I remember sitting on Valentine's Day in a hotel in Abuja, Nigeria, and a lot of couples there. But there was this one particular lady that was clearly waiting for her date, I guess her boyfriend that evening, and he never showed up. And I overheard a bit of the conversation. And I remember that because I tell myself, I wish I would have gone over to her and given her a hug or whatever and said, you know, it's going to be okay, or let me sit down with you. But now I've made a mental note of that. You know, there are times when get out of your little safety bubble and go. And, you know, we always say at the end of the program, it takes so little to make a meaningful touch on somebody, go out and touch somebody. So that's kind of my takeaway on this Valentine's Day.
Well, hey, I mean, it's just, if you are not happy, it doesn't take Valentine's to make you unhappy. You know, it starts with working on yourself, and you know, we're not always going to be with partners at the ideal times, you know, for holidays and everything.
Right.
So, but that doesn't mean we need to go and fall into depression. There are people around who are feeling exactly how you feel.
That's right.
Who are alone and who are feeling the same feelings. And it's not taboo. And, you know, it takes a phone call. You know, we always say, you know, if you're not feeling good or whatever, just pick up the phone and call your friend and tell how you feel. You know, nobody's going to judge you because we're all humans, we're all sharing the same pain, the same struggles, and we all have ups and downs. So we always imagine the grass is greener on the other side, but guess what? It's not. It is not. It is not. Yeah. So on that positive note.
On that positive note, happy Valentine's Day, Melissa.
Anymore. It's been like a long one. So this is it. This is my day. Yeah. On that note, I think we're gonna have to finish the show, to end the show with telling you to keep on sharing, subscribing, and liking, so we can keep doing what we do best, which is connecting the dots. So we don't have to. And yes, and the next episode is going to be very exciting. I believe that this month is a love month, so we're gonna, I think, keep everything, you know, it's going to be a surprise. The second surprise, it's a surprise episode, but it's still in the theme of love. So okay, well, that's it. Michael, would you like to say your goodbyes?
Yes, goodbye everyone, and thank you, Melissa, for you really rallied. And we also must thank, our thanks go all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to Pretty Bali, our producer, who works so hard, tirelessly, to get the faces you saw on the screen today, prepare them and research them and everything. Pretty makes our jobs so much more easier. And we can't thank her enough. And we give her a big Valentine's Day hug as well.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, big hug, big love.
Big hug, big hug. Wait.
How do you do the heart? Hang on. I can't do it. How
We have to ask Dr. Rico. What's the heart will look like? Anyway.
Anyway. All right.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.